everybody. Thanks for coming back to our channel, Ghost Stories, because everybody has one. I'm Stephanie Osteen.
I'm Susan Townsend.
I'm Sarah Diamond.
And we're here with my super speeder friend, Chad Darnell. So Chad has, if you haven't, he does actually, in Treatland County, where they took Ben Affleck to jail. So we're just very lucky that we didn't have to go bail him out the other night.
Yeah, there's still time.
But Chad has several ghost stories here. We've taped a couple of them. If you haven't seen those, go back and watch those. We have an intro on Chad, and you'll know everything about him by then. But we're going to tape two stories in this episode. Chad, do you want to?
Yeah. So when I was right out of college, I went to work for Turner in Atlanta, TBS, and I got to develop a special that I was going to pitch about Southern Ghost. And I was born and raised Southern Baptist, and so you weren't allowed to talk about ghosts because that was the occult. And so I just never had any kind of experience. And so we came down, very super long story short, I had a couple people from college that came with me, and we had some interesting experiences happen at Bonaventure that night that you couldn't really explain. And we went around to different places here in Savannah, at the Telfair Museum. Our batteries drained out of the cameras. We went to 1790, and all of the photos in that room were blurry. So like little things here and there. But it wasn't until I talked to Jack Lee, who shot the cover art for Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, the photo. And he told me about when he shot that photo, he locked himself in the cemetery that night. He had family that he was born and raised in Savannah. He used to play in that cemetery as a child, and he had never seen that statue before. And I went and asked him, I said, "Do you believe in ghosts?" And we've been talking to people about ghosts all day long, and people just like cross their arms and like roll their eyes, and he did the same thing. And I lunged across his table. This was at a studio around the corner, and I said, "What is it with you people?" I said, "Why does everybody keep like saying, doing that?" He's like, "You're asking the wrong question." And I said, "Do you not believe in ghosts?" And he said, "Ask me if I believe in spirits." I said, "Do you believe in spirits?" He goes, "Absolutely." He said, and then he told the story about his family, and he said, I rounded the corner at just the right moment, and I saw that statue, and I snapped one photo, and I've made millions of dollars off this photo. So if you ask me if I believe in spirits, absolutely. And so I said, "Well, how do you see one?" He said, "You just have to be open to it." And that was the first time I ever heard you just have to be open to it.
And he went on to explain the difference between ghosts
and spirits.
So
it was a ghost. The exact quote that he gave me is in a script now.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's in the telling.
That's
what inspired my script to tell.
Right.
I think he said a ghost is someone who a spirit was something that never was. Is how he put it. And a ghost was the soul of a person, I think is how he put it. But he was more in line with spirits. So I get up and I walk down the block to Lafayette Square, and he was like, I think there's a restaurant now there, but I walked a block south, I sat on this bench, and my old clunker cell phone, they only had like 20 minutes of charge at a time, was in my bag. I'd left the charger at home, and so it started ringing. And I reached in, I picked it up, and as I did, there wasn't a number or anything on it, it was just dots all the way across, but it was still ringing. And this man walked past me, he said, "Hello." I'm sorry, the man walked past me before the phone started ringing. The man walks past me, he says, "Hello." And then my phone starts ringing, and when I turned back around, the man was gone. And so I dropped everything that I had, and I went running along the lanes, and there was no man. There was nothing there. And I was running in front of the Lafayette Apartments. And so I get back, I'm still holding my phone, some friends of mine arrived, and they were making fun of me for being Hollywood, talking on my fake phone. I'm like, no, I wasn't even on the phone, because they knew that the phone had died the night before. I was like, no, I wasn't even on it, it was ringing. And I'll never remember, I'll never forget, I pushed function 4, which showed the battery strength on the phone, and it was completely charged. And stayed completely charged all weekend long. And so that was the first thing that happened. That was like the first big story. So when I got back to Atlanta, Margaret DeBolt, who wrote the book Savannah Specters, which is the go-to book of Savannah ghost stories, and very sweet woman, and I have a photo somewhere. I've got to find it for her. It's a great photo of like the two of us walking through Bonaventure, and she was a woman of a certain age, very she was older when I met her, and she was very spry. And I called and I told her what had happened. She goes, "Where did you say you were?" And I told her, and she said, "What do you look like?" And I started describing him. She goes, "Do you look like a young Ted Turner?" And as I was describing it, I was like, "That's exactly what he looked like." I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh, that was Joe Odom."
No.
Yes.
And
You gotta read Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil to know who Joe Odom is.
So she says, hopefully we still have power when I say this. So I get out she goes, "Get out the book and call me back." So I hang up with her and I get out the book and I'm reading the description of when John Barrett first laid eyes on him. And
Yes, I heard
Right?
that too.
Right?
It was a female voice.
It was. And I think she said laid eyes on him. Is that what it sounded like to
Yeah.
me? Did that sound like, is that what it sounded like to y'all?
Y'all,
Laid eyes on him?
stop.
It did. Yeah, we just heard a voice.
Y'all, I might just.
All right, Luke, come
Luke,
join us
come-
on the couch.
Cameraman
I'll do
Luke.
Laid eyes on him is what it just said. Did it not?
It did.
And we have it on video. I hope it doesn't distort.
Maybe the video caught it.
I didn't hear anything, y'all.
You
Y'all didn't
didn't?
hear the female
No.
voice?
She was.
We
you didn't
heard
hear
it.
that?
No.
It came from over there.
Yeah, it
did.
totally came from right there.
It did.
Okay, there's a doll right there, and that.
No. It was a female voice.
Okay.
That was wild.
Okay, in the previous tape, the computer rebooted itself for
Y'all.
no reason.
Chad, how do you stay here?
Chad has opened up a
Oh
huge
my God.
vortex.
Close it, Chad.
Close the vortex.
It's coming for us.
Okay, so stay there. So oh my gosh, that was so weird.
It was so weird.
It was like it was Margaret.
It was.
So oh my God, that was so weird.
That was creepy.
I don't know.
Because that was
weird.
Hedwig keeps catching my eye, and I keep thinking,
okay,
it's just.
and hand to God, I never hear my neighbors. So
That's
it
what I was
wasn't-
wondering. Can
No,
you
I
hear,
know.
you can hear people on the street?
Nope.
Street.
Well, we're 4 stories up.
Well,
so
it could be the street, but I can't ever
Yeah,
hear
we're
mine.
4 stories up. It would. You're right. It would.
But we just.
It's not logical.
But we heard that
We all
in the
heard
room
it.
as
We
if it
did.
was.
It
That was
was kind of
It was
really
like right
close
here.
to the
Yeah.
fire.
And it was like laid eyes on him is what I thought it said. Laid eyes on him.
All right.
Okay, so Margaret Bolt. So I get out the book and I start reading it, and that was just the refrigerator.
That was the refrigerator.
So I get out the book and I start screaming, and I run around to my boss's cubicle because she'd heard the whole. She's like, "What is going on?" It's like, because she goes, "Oh, that was Joe Odom." I was like, "Okay, and when did he die?" And so that's why my boss kind of like put her head around the corner, and so I'm reading the description, and in the description it said it was as if I had just watched a man pull off a high voltage act of larceny. And I'm sorry, backing up, I missed the point. It was in the book when John Barrett met him. John Barrett was living one street over.
Right.
And he was turning on, Joe Odom was turning on the power in that party,
Yeah.
which
yeah,
is
yeah.
right next
Yeah.
door to where I live now.
Wow.
And so all these years later, I just ended up living right in the middle of the story.
Yeah.
So, but when I saw him, it was over in front of the Lafayette Apartments. And so I'm like, it's as if I just watched a man pull off a high voltage act of larceny. And I closed the book, and all of the power went off in the building.
Shut up.
And, boom, and people were screaming like, "Ah, my computer!" And this is Turner, like they had a good backup system.
Right.
And so when I closed the book, all the power came back on.
Oh my gosh.
He's opened up a vortex.
And so my boss Adrian started screaming, she's like, "Get out of my cubicle!" And so then we went to lunch later, and I had this old Mustang, and I had been listening to the audio tape of Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil on audio, and Anthony Heald read the book. And so we're in the parking deck at Turner, and she's like, "I want to listen to some music." So she turns on the radio, and so she hears the audio, and she's like, "What is this?" And I was like, "Oh, it's the audio of Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil." And at the very moment is when Anthony Heald says, "It's as if I just watched a man pull off a high voltage act of larceny."
Oh my God.
And all of the power in the parking lot went out.
Your mouth.
This is crazy.
I told you he has the best story.
So
amazing.
that was that first weekend.
If I
Like,
didn't trust you, I would think you were making this
No.
up.
No.
But he just explained how he grew up Southern Baptist. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So exactly. Come to find out later, because I was trying to figure out the whole Joe Odom connection.
Yeah.
The Lafayette Apartments, which was right in front of where I saw him disappear, or didn't see him disappear, he just went away. Is the building that he scammed all of those people out of, and that's where he lived. You know, was scammed.
It was like squatting. Or,
Yeah. He was like
Wow.
I was selling these apartments that he was.
If the power goes
I
out
know.
in here.
I'm running to Sarah's car.
Wow.
So, but Margaret passed away a few years ago.
God
Is
rest Margaret.
And so she's now, well, apparently she's here.
Yeah.
She's buried in Greenwich Cemetery, which is the same cemetery that Danny Hansford's buried in. They're buried like in the next little division
No
over.
kidding.
Yeah, and then fun. This isn't really a ghost story, but it's a funny footnote. I was at Bonaventure several years ago, and a friend of mine was there with a friend, and we walked into the office, and we're talking to somebody, and I mentioned the Joe Odom thing, and they said, "Oh, he's out in the cemetery." I was like, "No." He's like, "Yeah, no, he's out in the family plot." And so we thought that he was like visiting somebody, and so we go out there, and we're like looking around. I'm like, "I don't see anybody out here." My friend Steve says, "You're standing right on top of him," and I didn't know that Jack had passed away from cancer, and so. It was, he died of cancer very suddenly. And so we go back into the office. I'm like, "You didn't tell me he was dead." And the guy he was mortified. He's like, "I'm so sorry. I thought you knew." I said, "It was actually very funny." It's like my friend Steve, like, "You're standing right on top of him."
So we talked a little bit about like ghosts versus spirits. Do you feel like one should be feared, like maybe the spirit, the thing that never was, maybe should be more, we should be a little bit more scared of those? Because let's talk about the three of us. We've talked a little bit about our friend Kanita. Mammograms about Kanita. So she came up to me last week because we were talking about just
My mammogram,
Yeah.
apparently.
so we were talking about, and she goes, "You need to talk to my mom, who was a nurse in South Africa, and they have hospitals that are, we in America, we only think of things as being like 300 or 400 years old. When we go to other countries,
Right.
things are much, much older than that." And
Right.
she said, when she would work in hospitals abroad, places that were much older, ghosts aren't things to be feared. Like,
Right.
The things walking around the hospitals are okay.
Right.
The things that we're supposed to be scared of are the spirits. Except she didn't. She was looking for the word spirit, and I gave her the word demon. But I think the word, now that we're having this conversation, I think the word that we're looking for is spirit.
Because there are good spirits and bad spirits.
Yeah, definitely malevolent and benevolent.
Yeah.
So going back to your story, don't you have a story that kind of connects in with Turner? And you were like doing some funky thing. Isn't that the same time?
Yeah, that was the same weekend.
Okay,
and
I
so,
thought it was.
But it was the 317 thing, and this is people. Now you're watching this and think he's crazy. But it's
now
also
they're gonna think
it's-
you're crazy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What did the girl say that was standing over there?
Laid eyes on him.
Laid eyes on him. Is
What is he doing to me?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That was
But what happened was that weekend, a friend of mine came into town, and I ended up staying. Because we were right out of college, like Turner has no money to like really put people up, and so like, and it was like more of a vacation kind of exploratory thing, and so a bunch of college kids, people right out of college, so we were all like multiple hotel rooms, and so I went down. I'm staying with him and his friends, guy and a girl, and so we're all like in these double beds, and as we're going to bed, I said, "Oh, by the way, I tend to talk in my sleep, so don't ask me any questions." And so the next morning, I wake up and everybody's like very quiet and like moving around, like very hushed, and I was like, I said, "Is everything okay?" I said, "I didn't talk in my sleep, did I?" And they're like, "You were very active in your sleep last night." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And apparently at 3:17 in the morning, I sat up. I was sitting up in bed making a gagging sound, and they heard me before they turned the light on. And when they turned the light on, I was sitting up in bed with my arms behind me, thrown back, and I was eyes open, staring at the ceiling. And they said that I was making a gagging sound, or what sounded like a bird.
Listen to this.
A bird.
And so I said, "You sound like a bird." And so they had asked me if I was doing okay, and apparently I then hinged at my waist. This is all in the screenplay, the telling. All I need is $3
We
million
need some money
to make
for
this
that.
movie. But I hinged at my waist and threw myself over his back with my arms off the side of the bed. And they were afraid to move me because they thought I'd snap my back. And
Because they didn't know if he was seizing or
Yeah.
like what he
Right.
was doing.
Like
and
grandma
then
or something.
they asked me, was I okay? And then they said it was as if you'd been lifted by your shoulder, and then I just went right back into a sleeping position. It was like, shoo. So,
It follows. Wait.
as well, I was like, that's weird.
That's weird.
That's really weird.
That is odd. That doesn't happen to me.
No, that's not a normal thing that happens. So then, as we were leaving town, a former employer of mine was in town working on a film, and I had met some of her employees, and they were talking about doing the Ouija board at night. They love doing the Ouija board. So
This one.
The same night.
the same night that this is happening, so I call her. I'm like, oh, by the way, we're leaving. She's like, you have to come to the hotel right now, at the DeSoto Hilton where they were all staying. So we get up on the roof, and these people come running at me, and there's like 3 of them. They're like, oh my God, you're alive. I'm like, why would I not be alive? And so they said, we were on the Ouija board last night, and it was 3:17 in the morning. And they said that the pointer was doing planchette was doing a figure 8, and I said, wow, it's like a bird, like a bird does figure 8s in the sky. And they said, do you have a name? And it said yes, Hawk. It's spelled Hawk. And they said, is there someone here influencing you? And it said yes. And they said, who? And I'm just sitting there with my friend Christy. And we're just like, these people are crazy. And they said, is there anybody here? Yes, CHADATTBS. And that they kept spelling out Chatadabus. Chatadabus.
Chat at
And,
TBS.
and then finally one of them said chat at TBS. And they'd met me and they knew that I worked at TBS. And they were like, ah! And so it started spelling out, Chris, take Chad home. Chris, take Chad home. Chris, take Chad home. And there was a guy, it was an Andrea, and there was a Christopher. And so he's like, so I guess this was just take you home. And I was like, well, that's cool, but I'm leaving. And so, it was kind of weird. And that was the first night I'd ever heard.
Kind of weird.
Yeah, well, I mean, especially after what had happened the night before and at the same time. So with my friend Christy and I got in the car, I was like, that was kind of weird. And she's like, yeah. I said, what was the weird part for you? She's I don't know, maybe Chris, take Chad home. And they had not met Christy.
Christy. Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird?
And so, and then we turned on the radio, and that Alanis Morissette song "Uninvited" came on. And she turned off the radio, and she goes, "We're gonna be silent all the way home." And yeah, that was the beginning of everything, for me as far as but again, weird things like the house that I rented during Magic Mike XXL, which was right around the corner from the Lafayette Apartments, was it faced it. The first night that I moved in, all of the blinds were closed because I was in bed and the bed was right there on the street, you could see right into the bedroom. And I realized there was alternate street parking, I had to move my car. So I literally only threw on my boxer shorts and my boots and went running across this, it's late in the morning, late at night.
Yeah.
And nobody can see. And so, but when I moved the car to a spot right across on the other side, I turned around, all of the blinds in the house were open.
Oh, no. Yes.
And I have a photo of that.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay, so at the end, after we've finished,
Yeah.
I'm going to add some of the stuff and we'll attach that to this. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
down in the description, the pictures.
Yeah.
But I walked in and I was like, all right, here's the deal. I'm gonna be here for 3 months.
Yeah.
Don't touch me.
Enough.
You cannot touch
You can
me.
stay, but you can't touch me. But I had 3
And
friends.
don't do the blinds thing again.
Yeah, we keep the blinds closed.
Yeah.
But I had 3 friends, all women, who came and stayed in the guest room, and every one of them had something go missing with their hair, like their scrunchies. One of them is married to a man who had a lot of money, and the reason is she had a $500 hair dryer that went missing.
Oh, wow.
And I had cut off all my hair, so it clearly wasn't me. And then one of them had her brush go missing, and every one of them had something. And then my
did
earbuds
they stay? Is that the same place that they were staying? And I think y'all had gone out. You had gone to bed, and there were
That's
Is
what
that the
we named
same?
it. That's
Yeah.
the one.
Is that the one?
So then my friend Lisa Chang, we'd gone out and there might have been some drinking going on amongst everybody else but me because I had to be at work the next morning at 6 o'clock. And so, but in the bedroom there was this giant chase at the end of the bed. So we'd gone back in, she's sitting on the chase, and I sat up on my elbows and I was like, Lisa, you gotta go to bed. I gotta go work in the morning. So she hobbles off to her bedroom and closes the door. So I'm trying to go to sleep and I feel this grab on my shin. And I sat up thinking it's her, and I was like, what? What do you want? And I got yanked halfway down the bed.
Oh.
And
yeah.
like my legs hanging
It
off the
moved
chase,
you.
and I was like, she's strong. And so I would crawling up to the light switch to turn it on. I was like, what is wrong with you? And I turned around and there's nothing there. And I think that was the time when I said, okay, you can't touch me.
Okay, because I was just about to say, did they not hear the chant? You can't touch me.
Yeah. I was like, that's when I said, you can't touch me.
Wow.
I told y'all he had
They
good
did
stories.
not like that house did not like women. That
Apparently,
Yeah.
kind of a hair thing too. Because
Yeah.
there's one thing you don't mess with me.
yeah.
It's my hair.
Yeah. Well, I told y'all he has some great stories, and that's just like that's just a little bit of his stories, but that's where we're going to stop right
That's
now.
pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
I hope y'all enjoyed it. We are going to do, I will add, I'll give y'all like a little tour of the haunted apartment here at the end of this.
Yeah.
I'll attach that in. But thanks for watching our show. We really appreciate it. Chad, thanks for coming on.
You're
Thank you so much.
Chad got a cup for coming on. So if you have some ghost stories, we'd love to hear you. If you want a cup, tell us some ghost stories.
You can find us on Facebook. We're Ghost Stories because everybody has one. If you have some stories you'd like to share with us, we can read them on air. We are sisterghoststories@gmail.com. And if you tell us yours, we'll tell you ours.